Hi everyone, welcome to my presentation, Between the Digital and the Real, Defining Identity and Making Connections. This presentation is in response to Project B for Graphic Design Seminar Media Strategy. So, a little bit about myself first. My name is Ashley Baca. I am an MFA Graphic Design candidate attending Savannah College of Art and Design's e-learning program. I live in Amarillo, Texas with my husband and son, 2 dogs, 3 cats, and 5 chickens. I also work full-time at the nonprofit Cal Farley's, which helps at-risk youth. Today, I wanted to discuss something that has been weighing heavily on me. It's an epidemic of mass proportions. For those born today, they will never know a world without this influence that has infiltrated our society so greatly that it has taken over much of our daily lives. It alters our mental states and changes our relationships. It's with us virtually 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and its glow beckons from our bedsides. And I'll wager that it's probably in your pocket right now. It's your smartphone. In this presentation, I will be discussing how design has been instrumental in the creation of the second self through smartphones and their environments. Because of these environments, the users have become a creator of their digital identities, sometimes resulting in a false representation of the self. Yet there is also great potential to harness this technology and encourage an epidemic for co-creating and social good within them. At the bottom of this video, you will notice a menu bar that will tell you where we are at any point in the presentation. In part 1, I will be discussing how the second self works as a simulacra, a concept presented by Jean Baudelaire in Simulacra and Simulation. We will see how design and the media of the smartphone act as a simulation of the real-world self, resulting in the second self. Through the act of creating, the user can become deeply embedded in the simulacra, second self, through manipulation and false representation. Part 2 contrasts these ideas as we focus on this media and its designed environments within, which can be harnessed to ensue social good and encourage co-creation in these digital spaces. In this section, we will discuss how Marshall McLuhan's notion of the global village was a warning of becoming a universal consciousness, but that through this connectedness, users are able to cause positive social change. Finally, I will wrap up the discussion in the conclusion and present a solution for us and other people to continue discussing the ideas presented here. The second self as simulacra. Amber Case, a cyborg anthropologist, presented the notion of the second self in her 2010 TED Talk, We Are All Cyborgs Now. The second self is the digital identity that a person creates, maintains, and is interacted with even when they are not present. The notion of the second self stems from the idea that so much of what we do is done online, and particularly through our smartphones, which results in them becoming an extension of our mental processes. Things that we used to do with our brains, we now rely on our phones to do, like taking pictures that replace our memories. And these events are then stored in our devices as data. Karina Kokano discusses how data affects us in the dilemma of being a cyborg. She states, data is weightless and characterless and takes up very little space. The more of it that we save, the more we lose the ability to differentiate it, to assign significance and meaning. The real is obscured through digital environments that create a datafied version of ourselves, resulting in the second self. The more we interact in this way, creating data externally from ourselves that simulates who we are and our experiences, the more obscure and farther from the real our digital becomes. Baudelaire's idea of the simulacra helps us understand the notion of representation in the creation of the second self. Simulacrum is defined by how simulation envelopes the whole edifice of representation as itself a simulacrum. Baudelaire presented 4 phases of how the image succeeds in becoming simulacrum. 1. It is a reflection of a basic reality. 2. It masks and perverts a basic reality. 3. It masks the absence of a basic reality. And 4. It bears no relation to any reality whatsoever. It is its own pure simulacrum. Right away, we can see how digital personas act as a basic reflection of reality through the images and parts we use to represent ourselves. Yet, in some cases, users can achieve the second, third, or fourth state by manipulating the second self through software and design environments, like Photoshop and apps, that allow the user to alter their appearance, literally changing how they look. Additionally, the perception of the real is further exacerbated through the content that we create and share. We pick and choose the bits and pieces of what we want to share to the point that we control the way others perceive us, as well as how we understand ourselves. In her TED Talk, Connected But Alone, Sherry Turkle discusses how we make these choices so that we can present ourselves in the way we wish to be. In the digital realm, we have control over the details of our personas. Additionally, data is editable and transferable, allowing us to go back in time and edit our own histories if we feel the need. This presents a conflict between reality because it no longer fixes it to that point in time. Bill Nichols, an American film critic and theoretician, saw Baudelaire's theory of the simulacra as a representational idea that complements cybernetic systems. He suggested that the simulation acts as an imaginary other which serves as a measure of our own identity. Through these transformations, questions of difference persist. Human identity remains at stake, subject to change, vulnerable to the challenge of modification. We recognize an ideal in our second self and understand that it serves as a measure of who we are. Through these identities, we represent that archetype, false or otherwise. This is perplexing when the difference between the real and the digital may bear marked differences. Part 2, Opportunities within the second self. On one hand, these spaces are an opportunity to provide misleading information. On the other, they can also be good for spreading information to social connections that have accumulated in the second self. Additionally, users have control over content and can help construct digital spaces they interact in, creating an opportunity for designers to harness the potential power for good in both the user and society. These environments allow for personalization and self-expression by the user, such as through their home screen or by creating the content and information they use in these environments, like those in Facebook or Twitter. Marshall McLuhan suggested that print isolated men, and warned that technology was going to create a collective consciousness, a global village. He stated that time has ceased, space has vanished. We now live in a global village, a simultaneous happening. We are back in acoustic space. We have begun to structure the primordial feeling, the tribal emotions, from which a few centuries of literacy have divorced us from. Perhaps this technology is bringing us back the missing connections in our lives that print secluded us from, connecting us in ways we never dreamed of before, like being able to Skype and FaceTime. Distance, time, and space are no longer a factor in how we communicate. We can instantly connect with someone on the opposite side of the earth, whenever and wherever we want. Well-designed apps are doing this now, reshaping time, space, and society in positive ways through personally designed spaces. With these types of tools and knowledge, designers can inspire social change, like having users help each other through personal cause-based initiatives, like through the app GoFundMe. I recently had a friend create a campaign for his daughter who was 2 years old and had cancer. She's now in remission, and her parents didn't have to worry about the financial burden associated with medical care. Our second selves in their environments can elicit the help of our social connections, allowing physical realm space and personal differences to be put aside in the pursuit of collective good. In conclusion, our smartphones have become a second self. We store our mental processes, our memories, and thoughts on them. Our physical experiences become data, and they are signs for the real-world versions of ourselves. However, they become simulacra when we participate in their manipulation with the aid of designed environments that encourage the falsification of the real self. Yet there is also great potential for design to encourage co-creation and social good by allowing users to influence each other through well-designed environments, spreading tolerance and understanding through the spheres of connections that are created in the second self. This influence has the potential to reshape our external realities and shape movements and beliefs globally. In response to the issues and ideas surrounding the second self, I decided to create a website. This site is a wiki that people can go to and discuss the ideas presented in this paper, or others that are related to the second self. The site is called DIAL, which stands for Digital Identity Art Log. Essentially, it is a community art project through a wiki forum and is a collage of ideas, designs, creations, and other materials that users wish to submit related to the topic at hand. For this project, I created 3 areas where the user can go to. They are called Representation, Connected, and Social Good. Through these areas, users will be given more refined questions that they can post written, oral, or visual responses, such as video or photographs. In theory, this site will help facilitate the ideas and issues surrounded by the second self. Additionally, it will act as a launching pad for other topics that users might suggest. Here are some close-ups of the homepage, featuring a main slider where there would be a welcome video about the site and featured posts from users. Initially, the categories would be listed on the homepage with more information about the site so that users were introduced to the concept. Built into the posting will be a system of data collection. For instance, if users are feeling negatively or positively about a topic, or specific data related to categories, such as personally using photographic manipulation for posting online in social networks. These types of data will then be presented as a running infographic that is updated as the site grows, allowing users and other entities to understand the ramifications of the second self from a social perspective. In summation, it is my hope that this site will serve as an educational, public forum on how we collectively work, relate to, and feel about the second self. Why the second self has the ability to shape our identities, it also has the ability to affect the physical realm. What is a source for falsification is also a source for positively shaping the world. There is both good and evil in the things that we design and the way we live, but figuring out how to harness and spread the potential of these spaces is the crux of the design problem.